A shape appears on your screen. No warning, no context, just a symbol crossing the display, and a number beside it saying it is moving at 780 knots straight at you. You have seconds to decide what it is. Get it wrong one way, and something hits the ship you are standing inside. Get it wrong the other way, and you have fired a multi-million-dollar missile at a friendly aircraft with people in it. You are sitting in a dark room below the waterline, on a warship in a stretch of water where you can be attacked at any hour of any day. You cannot see the sky. You cannot see the water. You only see the screen. And you have been doing this in rotating watches for 215 days. None of it looks like the movies. Here's the thing almost nobody understands about a modern warship. When a destroyer fights, the crew does not watch it happen. There are about 300 sailors aboard a ship a little over 500 feet long. And when the missiles start coming, most of them are sealed at their stations behind watertight doors, feeling the ship shudder as it fires, with no idea what is happening outside. The battle belongs to a room called the Combat Information Center. It is the tactical brain of the ship, buried deep inside the hull, and it holds somewhere between 10 and 20 sailors on watch at any given time. Dim light, wall-to-wall glowing screens, no windows, because there is nothing to see out of one that would help. Everything that is trying to kill this ship arrives first as a symbol on a display, and those 10 to 20 people have to decide in seconds what each symbol is. So what is it actually like to fight a war you can only see as shapes on a screen for months without a break? And later, the Night 1 crew got that decision wrong, and what it did to everyone still standing those watches. Let us get into it. Start with the seconds, because everything else grows out of the seconds. When a missile comes at a ship, it does not arrive from above like in a film. The dangerous ones come in low, sea-skimming, hugging the surface of the water, hidden by the curve of the earth itself until they are close. That is not an accident. It is designed that way, specifically to shrink the amount of time a radar can see it coming. Fire several of them at once from different angles, and you compress a warship's reaction time down to almost nothing. That is the whole point of the tactic, not to overwhelm the ship's armor, but to overwhelm the people. So the crew in that dark room is playing a game they did not design, on a clock somebody else set, and the clock keeps getting shorter. And they do not get to just shoot at everything. That is the part people miss. The sky above a busy waterway is full of things: commercial airliners, friendly fighters returning to a carrier, helicopters, cargo planes, drones, birds, weather, and the actual missile. Every one of them shows up on the same screen as a symbol. The watchstander's job is to say which is which, and to say it fast, because the moment you hesitate, the window closes, and when they do engage, it is not one interceptor per threat. The Navy's own analysis puts it at roughly 2 rounds fired for every incoming missile shot down, 2 of yours for 1 of theirs, over and over. What is remarkable is what that number matches. Naval leaders have pointed out that this rate of fire is essentially the same as what warships were expending in the Second World War, more than 80 years ago. All that technology, all those decades, and in the middle of a real fight, the arithmetic came out the same. So that is 1 engagement. Now do it again for 7 months. Because this is where the story stops being about a battle and starts being about endurance. A destroyer deployment normally runs 6 to 8 months. And in recent years, some have stretched past 9. One ship, the USS Mason, spent 215 days inside what the Navy calls the weapons engagement zone, the area where you are close enough to be shot at. 215 days of being a target, not 215 days of combat, to be clear. A lot of it is nothing at all. But that is precisely the thing that grinds people down. You cannot relax because the nothing is indistinguishable from the moment before something. Every watch, every umi, and every hour, the possibility is live. And life around that clock is small and tight. A destroyer is a cramped ship, closer quarters and harder work than the enormous carriers people picture. The bunks, which sailors call racks, are stacked 3 high in shared berthing spaces, each one barely wider than a person, and there is one dining space feeding the whole crew in shifts. Meals happen when your watch rotation lets them happen, not when you are hungry. Sleep is the same. You sleep between watches in a metal room with a couple dozen other people listening to the ship work around you. And then an alert sounds, and people who were unconscious 90 seconds ago are strapped into a chair in a dark room, expected to make a life or death call about a symbol that just appeared on a screen. That is the actual job, not heroic sprinting down corridors, being woken up over and over, and being right. 2 things make it harder than it already sounds. The first is that the equipment does not always cooperate. Sailors and officers who have served in these rooms describe how regularly the systems they depend on simply go down. Radars, displays, combat systems crashing. It does not take much to knock a warship's sensors offline, and when that happens, the crew loses exactly the information they need most at the worst possible time. The second is stranger. Radars produce ghosts. Watchstanders talk about leaders, long lines that appear on the display, and look for all the world like something screaming toward the ship at 780 knots. It is not real, but you do not know that in the first second. Picture that appearing on your screen at 3 in the morning in month 6 on the 4th watch of a week that has blurred together. You have to be right, every time. And that brings us to the night one crew was not. In December of 2024, during a sustained drone and missile attack in the Red Sea, an American warship shot down an American fighter jet. The cruiser's Combat Information Center was tracking a large number of airborne objects at once in the middle of a real engagement, and a friendly fighter was misidentified and engaged. No one aboard the aircraft was killed, but the incident sent a chill through the entire surface fleet, because everybody standing those watches knew it could have been their room. This was not carelessness by one person. It is what happens when you take an impossibly compressed decision window, a crowded sky, systems that sometimes fail, and human beings who have been doing this for months, and you run that combination often enough. Senior officers have said as much publicly, that a mix of inexperienced watchstanders and the kind of routine system outages that plague warships could cause things to break down quickly, despite an otherwise remarkable track record. That is the real weight in that dark room. Not just being hit, being wrong. There is one more problem hanging over all of it, and it has nothing to do with courage. It is arithmetic. The drones being fired at these ships are cheap. The interceptors being fired back are not. Sophisticated missiles costing millions apiece, and a warship carries a finite number of them. You cannot resupply your magazine in the middle of an ocean during a fight, so every engagement burns down a stockpile that only shrinks, and analysts have been openly warning that this exchange rate is not sustainable. That is why the Navy is now pushing hard toward cheaper answers. Electronic warfare, guns, defensive drones, anything that does not spend $1 million missile on a machine that cost a few thousand. And here is the uncomfortable truth underneath. An adversary firing cheap drones at expensive ships is not trying to sink them. They are trying to exhaust them. The strategy is to stretch the defenses and the ammunition and the patience of the people running both until something gives. The crew in that dark room is not just the target of the missiles, they are the target of the whole plan. And maybe that is the thing to sit with. Strip away the radar, the interceptors, the acronyms, and you are left with something almost unbearably ordinary. A person in a chair, in a dark room, below the waterline, looking at a screen. A shape appears. They have a few seconds. They make the call. And then they do it again and again, on a rotation that does not end for 215 days. Here's the detail I keep coming back to. After one destroyer's first real engagement of this campaign, its commanding officer said that within 2 days, he had 15 re-enlistment contracts sitting on his desk, 15 sailors who had just been shot at and whose response was to sign up for more. Not because it was glamorous, because the people beside them in that room were doing it too. They are not invincible. They are just there, in the dark, watching the screen so that the ships passing behind them do not have to. There is another one on screen if you are not done yet.